Welcome to a new edition of the Therawake Podcast. We're really excited because this is our first virtual podcast. Normally the Therawake podcasts are via audio, but 2024 we decided let's just go visual and have some real engagement, interaction. And who better to start with than a soon-to-be drama therapist, Alayna Hester. Welcome to the Therawake Podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited.
We're excited to have you here. So I'm going to do a little bit of an introduction and I'll hand over to you. So I understand that you are studying your master's in drama therapy at NYU, which is New York University. And I came across your research online and I was drawn by it, A, because I'm also a drama therapist, but B, because you did some really amazing work with wigs. And Black people and our relationships with hair. And it just got me thinking about, that is huge. Because, in drama therapy, we talk about different archetypes, different aspects of self, embodiment, role. And I thought, wow, this young lady has coined it. So I connected and here we are. So over to you, Alayna. How did you first decide that actually you wanted to train to become a drama therapist?
Yes. So I would say that my drama therapy journey started pretty early. I've always had an interest in theater. It's always been something that I love doing. My grandmother was an actress, and so throughout my childhood, I have distinct memories of going to her shows and watching her perform. And so in middle school and elementary school, I was always like in the performing arts, in plays and things like that. And then when I got to high school, I was on the speech and drama team. I competed in that as well. And then when I got to undergrad, I decided that this was something that I wanted to do as a career, and it was something that I would want to do for the rest of my life and be involved in. And so I majored in theater, and that was when I truly, I think, kind of blossomed into theater and into the community of it. And so it was in my final year of undergrad that I was thinking about what I wanted to go into, because I really loved acting, but acting it was something that I didn't see as sustainable for me. And so I was looking up different ideas of what to go into, like with a theater degree, and I found drama therapy online, and it was on NYU's website actually that I found drama therapy, and I was like, wow, like this is crazy. Like people are actually doing this as a career. Like this is something that exists in the real world, and people are studying it, and people are drama therapists, because I felt like throughout my life, I was doing drama therapy, but I just didn't really know it. Like I was in plays and I was in different roles and characters, and I was like, this feels healing, but I couldn't really put any kind of like theory behind it or really kind of like know where to situate it. I didn't know it was drama therapy. And so finding that, I reached out to different professors at NYU at the time. This was in like 2020. I reached to alum of the drama therapy program.
The pandemic. That was during the lockdown.
Exactly. Yeah, it was during the lockdown. So I reached out to different people, and I talked with them. I had phone calls, Zoom calls. I emailed a bunch of people, and I just really went down a rabbit hole of like doing as much research as I possibly could about drama therapy. And then I decided in the following year that I would apply for the program. And so, that's how I came to drama therapy.
I mean, you're quite modest, and only because we've spoken a bit before going live. You are a researcher at heart, because you didn't know that there was this concept of embodiment and theatre, and your family come from a very performative lineage, right? So obviously it makes sense that you would end up on the stage, or you'd be doing movies or film, that kind of thing. It's very competitive in the UK, so I can only imagine how competitive it is over in the US, right? So the fact that not only did you find a course at MA in drama therapy, but you took the initiative to make direct contact with like the course convener, the professors,
Mhm.
people that are already practicing, to ask them and inquire. I mean, that takes a lot of confidence, especially to do that in a global pandemic where everything's locked down. There's a lot of fear, there's a lot of scaremongering. We're not sure what the future looked like. So in that place of despair for a lot of people, it sounded like you were not distracted with that you were actually very focused.
Yeah, I think honestly it was a lot of excitement. It was like a thrill almost. Cuz when I found it, I was like I found this is what I want to do. Like this is what I see myself doing as a career. And I want to know as much as I possibly can about it. It was like a thirst because I also had an interest in psychology and like mental health and things like that. I had an interest in it, but it was just something that I never really pursued. Like I took a couple psychology courses in undergrad and that was kind of it. And so to know that this world and this community existed that merged theater and mental health into like one discipline was so invigorating for me. And so it was like a thirst. And COVID was still happening, and there was so much chaos happening around me that I think this was the thing that I kind of like clung to as like a distraction. Um, from everything that was happening. Not to say that it wasn't happening, but because it very much so was, but it was just something that I could kind of escape to in a way.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Interesting. So the timing as well and the healing aspect. So you said that you were interested in the psychology of it. And you are from African American descent as well. So in terms of like the figures, actually, let me go back. Let me not assume that you are African American. How do you identify in terms of your culture and your race?
Yeah, I do identify as African American.
Okay, I'll put my foot in it many times by just assuming, because we're scattered. The diaspora is scattered. We have to be mindful of people's identities. And I'm really mindful that the drama therapy profession, certainly in the UK, is very white British. And in terms of the class system, it's quite difficult to access drama therapy. And I'm just wondering about how you feel about the profession that you're going into, that you're training into, but also what is it like to train as an African American drama therapist, trainee drama therapist? What is the culture like in New York, in the States?
Yeah, I'll say as a whole in the States, the drama therapy field is still very majority white people. I would say white women for sure make up majority of the drama therapy community in the States. But what I found, especially at NYU, is that in New York is already so diverse in its population and its cultures that make up the city and the state. And so what I found within the program that there are so many people from different countries and different cultures that come into the drama therapy program, and we find ways to further the practice and deconstruct certain things and kind of push the field, progress it a little bit more and push it towards a more like decolonized world, because drama therapy is still a very young field. It's still developing in a lot of ways, and it's made a lot of progression over the years since it was developed, but it still has a lot of ways to go. And so it can be as a practicing Black clinician, especially bringing in my ideas about Black hair and how we can use drama therapy to assess our relationships with our hair. It's been very eye-opening, honestly, presenting this research and talking about it with people, because I find that there are so many people that don't even understand, or it's hard for them to even like conceptualize how Black people have such complex relationships with their hair. Like it's something that a lot of people have never even thought about. And so It's been a shock to me, honestly, because coming from Chicago, because I was raised in Chicago, and I was always around people that looked like me. I went to black schools. I always had I had white teachers, but I was mostly around, the students were mostly black. I went to black schools. I lived in a black neighborhood. So I was always around people that looked like me. And so when I moved to New York, and I went to a PWI as well, but when I moved to New York, I really started experiencing so many different cultures outside of my own, outside of anything that I've seen and known for so long. And so it's been a bit of a shock for me.
Sounds like layers for you.
Yeah,
It sounds like layers, and I kind of want to go back a little bit because I don't. Yeah, we haven't spoken about how you embarked on your research. You know
right.
that because when you're going into like a relationship with a thesis or a dissertation or a piece of research, you're going into a relationship.
Yes.
You know, you're going to have this tug of war with this relationship, but you're committed to it.
Yeah.
So it's got to be something that is of interest to you. So obviously, yes, you're, African American and, you have a relationship with your hair.
Mhm.
But what drew you to actually say, I want to do a piece of research on black hair and the relationship with black Afro hair? Tell me your story or your journey into that.
Yeah. So growing up, I've always had a very complex relationship with my own hair. My hair was very long and it was very curly, and I always wore it out. I used to wear it very long, like straightened, and then I started wearing it more natural, and I would wear it in like a big fro. And so people knew me for my hair. That was something that people like kind of, when they thought of me, they always thought of my hair. And so growing up, I would always get, compliments and things from my family, like, oh, your hair is so beautiful, never cut it, or like compliments that were like, oh, you have good hair, or just things like that. And so I grew up having this attachment to my hair, what I felt like was an unhealthy attachment, because as I got older, I started doing a lot of questioning and a lot of self-reflection. And it was hard for me to feel pretty or feel worthy or feel confident if I didn't have my hair out and long and curly or straight. Like, I didn't feel confident if I didn't have my hair like that. And so it left me thinking, like, is my hair what makes me me? Is my hair what makes me pretty? Do people only like me because of my hair? Some thoughts that I was having. And so and it was also in 2020 when I decided that I wanted to detach from my hair. And also during this time, I was going through, my hair was breaking off and it was really damaged during this time. It was long, but it was damaged. So it was, and it was coming out a lot. Like when I would brush it and comb it, I would have like clumps of hair in my hands. It was shedding really bad. So I decided that I wanted to cut it off. And so in 2020, I cut all of my hair off. Like, it was really extremely short. I basically had no hair. And I decided that that would be my time to detach from my hair. And I would develop confidence in this short hairstyle that I had. I would develop confidence in the beauty of me and not my hair. And I wanted people to see me for me and not see me from my hair.
Interesting, because you said that you were known for your hair, so people would talk about how beautiful your hair was and don't ever cut your hair off. But interesting, something was shifting in 2020 for you is what I'm picking up. Not only was there this epiphany that, hold on a minute, there's this performing arts, there's this therapy, there's this term called drama therapy that I can coin together and actually study and come out of Chicago and move to New York if I'm successful in my application. So all that's going on. And then your hair starts to shed, to break, coming out in clumps, obviously going through some kind of transition or something was going on.
Right.
And you cut it off, which goes against, I guess, what you've been conditioned, or your internal epistemology of your belief system that your beauty potentially is your hair.
Right. Yeah.
What do you think was going on for you as part of that process?
I think I I attached a lot of my self-confidence to my hair, and I didn't want to feel like that. I wanted to see for myself, like, do people like me for me? Am I pretty? Was like a really big question for myself. Like, I really started to ask myself, like, am I pretty without the hair? And is like, can I still be Alayna without this hair? And so it was really a huge moment for me when I cut all of my hair off. I felt really, really uncomfortable. Like, immediately after, I kind of regretted it and I felt extremely uncomfortable. There were even moments where when I would go outside, the world was on lockdown, so not many people were outside anyway. But when I did go outside, I still found myself covering it. I would wear hats, or I would put like a wig over it when I went outside. And so it was like a really long time of just me feeling very uncomfortable with my short hair. And I remember like just wishing, like, okay, how long is it going to take for my hair to grow back? Like wanting it back so bad because I was so uncomfortable and I wanted to be seen. But at the same time, when I forced myself to be seen, it almost felt like it was too much.
Wow. So it's almost like going from this invisibility, like the Black woman being invisible, to feeling very visible with your hair cut off. And I'm just wondering about how that hair journey equated with people's perception of your mental health. Did you get any question marks about, are you okay? You've cut that hair off. It's the pandemic. What's going on with her?
That's a good question. Honestly, not directly. I never got any questions about my mental health directly from anyone. I remember when I first cut it and I took a picture and I posted it like on my Instagram story, and I got like a bunch of like comments, people like replying to it like, "Oh my God, you cut your hair. Like, I'm so shocked." And a lot of compliments too. And so that made me feel good. But I didn't really get any questioning about well, actually, I did. I got some questioning from my family. I think when I cut my hair off, I did get some questioning from my family about, like, why did you do that? Are you okay? Was, I think, one question that I remember being asked. And I was just like, yeah, I'm okay, but I think it's time for something different. I think it's time for a new version of me to
Love that. Love that story, and love that connection with your research. So what was drawn to me was, in your research, was the workshop with the wigs and the different identities that are taken on. And, there's many different strands to this conversation that we can go, because even as a therapist who presents with myself, I change my hair all the time. And even over the years, the texture of my hair has changed. I've cut it, I've grown it, I've weaved it. I haven't lost it. That's one thing I haven't done yet. But it's always changing. And then I noticed that it can almost bring on, especially when I was younger, a different persona and how people respond to me. So if I had my hair natural in an afro state, which was my hair before, it started to change. As I got older, it started to get straighter, down to, the lineage of how we were mixed back in our lineage. So our hair changes and our skin changes as we start to age. That actually, I would present very differently, and how the world would respond to me would be different. So if I had an afro, if I had cane rows, it might be, "What are you saying, sis? How are you?" All of a sudden, it's like and then if I had a weave on, or I've had a really long flowing wig on, I'd be seen as maybe sassy or sexy or attractive or feminine or elegant. So it's that communication. I'm still the same person. I've just changed my crown, but the way the world perceives it is completely different. So when I saw your workshop, I thought, yes, people playing and experimenting with different wigs on their head and then creating a different character. What was that like for you? How did you get your participants? How was it received at the university? Did they get it?
Yeah, so this workshop is connected to my thesis. And so I'm a part of a therapeutic theater organization known as Kaleidoscope Repertory Theater Company. And so we have a show coming up next month. And so I decided that I would do this workshop with the cast of the show. Now, Kaleidoscope Repertory Theater Company is a therapeutic theater company for people of color and Black people. So my
Please
participant,
tag that organization as well, so people might want to know more about it. I think it's really
yeah,
helpful. Yeah.
yes, it's based in New York, near NYU, and so I decided to do this with the production team and some of the cast members of the show. And so it was during one of our rehearsals, and I decided to do this workshop where I went out and bought, I think maybe about like 15 different wigs, and we put them all on a table. And so what I asked the participants to do was to choose a wig that they felt most connected to, or wigs, trying on different wigs, noticing how you feel when you put the wig on. Do you feel happy? Do you feel attractive? Do you feel sexy? Do you not like it so much? And it's not so much to um, uh, differentiate whether it's a good or a bad thing, but it's just to begin to notice how you feel when you try on these different wigs. What are you noticing within yourself? So I asked participants to do that for a little bit, and then I asked them to choose a wig they felt most connected to and to put it on and keep it on. And so after they chose a wig, we did like a mini fashion show where I allowed everyone to access their most confident selves in this wig, and we did kind of like a mini fashion show. And so people came up with different names for the wig that they had on, and after that, I invited everyone to take the time to go to enroll into the hair itself. So take on the role of hair, uh, and write from that role, write a story from that role of hair. And I left it very general on purpose because I wanted people to be as creative as they would like and come up with a story that felt right for that hair. And so there were many different stories that came up. And I remember one participant wrote a story about how in this wig, she was very fiery. It was like a long, bright red wig, and she felt very fiery and confident, and brave and bright, and like she wanted to take more risks. It was like a side of her that she felt like she didn't explore enough, or that she hadn't explored enough, and that she actually wanted to implement into her kind of everyday self. And she wanted to explore this fiery part of herself that she hadn't really touched. And so being in that role of hair inspired that for herself. And so there were so many stories that came up, that I was just so grateful to witness and be in the space with and be in community with. And also the workshop was just so transformative for myself and for everyone else. It was extremely transformative.
It sounds very healing.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like there were many different, moments of awakening that happened for lots of your participants, but also yourself as well.
Mm-hmm.
How did you find the process of de-rolling when people had to now de-roll the wig, let go of the wig, and then come back into their present state? What was that process like?
Yes. So we asked everyone to kind of to remove the wigs, and then also like shake out this character that they had embodied themselves as, and then return back to take a deep breath and return back to themselves. But honestly, a lot of people were so sad they did not want to take the wigs off. Like there was so much confidence and love and appreciation in the room that there were people that literally did not want to take the wig off. Like they stayed in the wig until the very last minute because they felt that much comfort and that much joy being in this role of hair in the wig. And so that was also something that I found so fascinating, was like how we can change our hair and literally become different versions of ourselves.
Absolutely.
And feel so confident and free in that. And I think that's the beauty of Black hair, is that it's so versatile. We have the ability to change and switch our hair and be different people on any given day and step into any different roles on any given day.
Absolutely. And this is quite a big piece of research, because it goes into that whole argument around corporate work and how, especially women in particular, how Black women present themselves in the corporate world or in journalism, and how they're going to be judged. And now there's legislation now to say, actually, you cannot penalize somebody or not give them that job if they can do the job. It's not dependent on, aesthetically what their hair looks like, or, your hair looks really nice, but if you could just maybe make it a bit flatter or a bit smaller or tie it back, all of that is discrimination now. So I'm glad that people are lobbying, and there's a lot more awareness around that. What happens next? Because obviously I'm aware that you're still a trainee, but there's lots of attention. And when I say what happens next, and the reason I'm also wanting this recording for you in particular to take away as a form of the power of dissemination. You put something out into the world now. Gone are the days where you have to go to the library and look for books, but you can now have bits of research. You can cite it. Like you said, drama therapy is in its infancy. There isn't a plethora of journals and articles. So we are the next generation to start adding to that, the building blocks. I can cite you in my research, you can cite me, and hopefully there's a rippling effect as well. And it might be a really exciting time for you to be part of that in your training journey. So what happens next for Alayna?
Yeah, I really want to, even after I graduate, I still want to continue researching this and continue building upon what I've already done so far. I think this is something that's very much needed in the field of drama therapy, especially when we're talking about cultural humility and cultural awareness, cultural appreciation. Like these are important foundational tools, I believe, like in that world. And so I really want to keep building off this, and I would love to provide some kind of like structure or framework for clinicians to be able to refer back to when they're working with clients of color, working with Black women, even Black men, any Black persons. Like this can be very useful, especially because hair has a lot to do with how we show up on any given day. Like we were talking about earlier, like hair is heavily attached to confidence, sense of self-worth, how you feel. And so these are what our clients are coming with when we're in sessions with them, when we're in practice with them. This is who they are. This is who they are. And this is what they are coming with. And so the better that we can be able to understand them, the better that we are at providing care for them and providing the care that they need for them. And so I really want not just Black clinicians and clinicians of color, but also non-Black clinicians and non-POC to be able to use this as well. White clinicians, I would love for this to be something that people can have access to and use in their own practice, because it's so important in providing care. So important.
So important. And in your research, in your workshop, you did have white participants or non-Black participants, didn't you?
Yes. I had non-Black participants. Yeah, there were a few non-Black participants, and there was also one Black male, and there was also one non-binary person as well.
Fantastic. So it's inclusive, and it's kind of getting rid of a lot of these labels that kind of compartmentalize, but actually just looking at hair and the relationship with hair. Also, it's awareness for clients. As a therapist, as a drama therapist, you will have clients, and one week you might have your hair like this, and then the next week, I don't know, you might have a long flowing wig on. What's it going to be like for the client experience? Right. And that's why the findings is so important, because if there's this almost like grief aspect of, oh, I'm really longing for that long wig that I had on, or my afro, or whatever. If that's all playing out, then how is that being transferred onto the client? And then how can we even work with that in the space? So there's so much to do. And I just feel like, yeah, you've started a bigger conversation.
Yeah.
So I'm really appreciative of that. I really am.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited too. And I think it's important for clients and clinicians, because I think when we kind of know how we're showing up and we know like what role we're taking on any given day when we have this hairstyle, then we can be able to access that and be aware of it and how that role may be affecting how we're providing care or how our client is showing up within the session, and kind of the dance and the back and forth that we do between us.
Love that, because it really is a dance. And at the end of our podcast, we always ask my guests about gems. What gems would you give the Therawake listeners to kind of summarize this podcast? So if you were going to give a gem, a word of guidance, a takeaway, what would you say?
I think one of my gems that I would say, especially to any Black listeners, I would say that to be free in your hair choices, like really and truly, utterly be free, because I feel like in society it feels like there's so many opinions that are always coming at us about aesthetics and the way that we should look and how presentable we should look and how our hair should be, and like, all these different ideas and opinions on what we should look like. And I think it's just important for you to be comfortable in how you look and your own aesthetic and your own hair choices. Do what feels good for you and feel free in that, because it only matters what you think and what you feel comfortable with.
Love that. So be free. Freedom.
Yeah.
Freedom. Let it flow. Alayna, thank you so much for being a guest and for kind of spreading your gems to the Therawake listeners. And I wish you all the very best with your research, with your thesis. You call it in the States, we call it dissertation on our end. Is it thesis on your end?
Yeah, master's thesis, yeah.
Master's thesis, right? So let us know when you're all done. And you never know, when you next have a conference over in the States, maybe some of our British drama therapists can come over and support. And likewise, when we have our conferences over here, because we have the British Association of Drama Therapists, we'll kind of make sure that information gets passed over to NYU, and we'll see what happens. Collaboration, potentially.
I would love that.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you so much. Be well, take good care, and I'm sure we'll speak soon. And Therawake listeners, thank you very much. If you have any comments, please make sure you comment below and share. And also, as part of the Therawake beginning, we have a new directory where if you are looking for a drama therapist, creative arts therapist, psychotherapist, CBT therapist, EMDR therapist, clinical supervisor, or you just want to have an inquiry, then just visit us at www.therawake.co.uk. And Alayna, you're going to drop some details with the performing arts company that you did your workshop as well. So
yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Be well. You too. Bye-bye.